y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, here we go.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm calling this meeting to order. The first item is roll call.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Erasmo Villarreal,
Present.
Jose Tellez,
Present.
Jorge Dominguez,
Present.
Rafael Dueñas,
Present.
Abraham Lugo, Johnny Narvaez,
Here.
Raúl Ugalde,
Present.
Larry Dovalina,
Here.
Carlos Flores. For the record, Mr. Chairman, you do have quorum.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Lugo? He called me that he was gonna have to stay at work. A lot of extra work came in.
I make a motion to excuse the commissioners not present.
Second, Larry.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. The next item that we have is the consideration of the approval of the minutes of November the 19th, 2020. Is anybody have y'all looked at the minutes and
I make a motion to approve the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second, Dueñas.
All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. None heard, motion carries. Thank you. The next thing that we have is citizens' comments, and we'll wait a few minutes, Kirby, to see if anybody's on the line.
Yes, sir. And I want to thank everybody. Everyone's doing a great job muting themselves after they speak. That really helps with the audio quality of the meeting. Really appreciate that. And yes, so there's about a 30-second lag. So, but we can also take comments throughout if anybody calls in. We'll be sure. And there is a public hearing for several of the items dealing with annexation. So I'm sure we'll hear from the public. So if you want, we can move forward.
We can move forward then. Thank you. First item that we have is a public hearing and recommendation of an ordinance for the following annexation tract. 5A is the public hearing and recommendation of an ordinance for the voluntary annexation and initial zoning of AG and R1A on a tract of land totaling 247.7 acres, more or less. Less 150.43 acres AG and 87.27 acres of R1A. As described by the bounds, known as Annexation Tract 1. It's the Rodriguez Ranch Tract, and it is located east of International Boulevard and north of Juan Escuta Boulevard. All right, this is a public hearing, and we'll give it time for anybody who wishes to speak on this public hearing, or do you have a presentation that you want to make on the annexation plan that you've already done?
Yes, sir. I have a presentation for each one of these annexation applications.
Okay, very good.
You gave a good overview. I'll just add that the applicant is Rodriguez Ranch Limited and the engineer is Howland Engineering. This is the general location. This is an aerial view showing the property, the 250 acres. Here is a map showing the current zoning. It's R1 and R1A, our lower density single family zones. And here's a map of the future land use map. We're working on our future land use map as we've expressed to you before. Right now it's based in the area that's in the ETJ. It's fairly rough, which would be anticipated, but you can see that this area calls for a continued expansion of residential. And here is the tract that was drawn. Staff supports the recommendation. It's in conformance with the future land use map and of the comprehensive plan. It's compatible with the uses in the area, and we don't believe the initial zoning, which is what your recommendation is here for council, we don't believe that will adversely impact the surrounding neighborhood inside the city limits. And here's the proposed motion. Just want to call attention, it is a recommendation to council regarding the zoning of this, the initial zoning of this proposed annexation.
Okay. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for the planning staff on the annexation? Okay. Does anybody wish to comment on this? This is a public hearing. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak for or against the annexation? Or
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any comments from the public so far.
nobody?
Gracie, do you have the applicant on the line?
No, Kirby, I'm not able to get a hold of him. He's not answering. It goes to voicemail.
Okay, thank you.
All right. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against, we will give this another minute. See if anybody comes on the line. All right, nobody has come on the line, Kirby, is that correct?
That is correct. We'll alert you if we get a call from the public.
All right, and with nobody else on the line to comment on the public hearing, whether for or against, what are the wishes of the commission?
Move to close the public hearing and motion to recommend voluntary annexation of tract 1.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. With none heard, motion carries. Thank you. Next item, public hearing and recommendation of an ordinance for the voluntary annexation and initial zoning of M1 on a tract of land totaling 2.07 acres, also known as annexation tract 2, the Cuevas Stanley Tract. It's located south of the Mines Road and west of the Coal Mine Road. Yes, sir, Kirby?
Yes, sir. The applicant is Cuevas Stanley Investments, and the engineer is Do Right Engineering. As you stated, it's a roughly 2-acre tract of land located south of Mines Road. They're proposing to do M1, which is our light manufacturing zone. We have 2 manufacturing zones, M1 and M2. The M1 is the lighter of the 2, and the proposed use is industrial. Here's the general location, south of Mines Road, the northwest part of the city. Here's an aerial view showing the proposed tract. Here's the future land use map designating, or you can see next to it, industrial already. Excuse me, this is the current zoning. This is the proposed, the future land use, which shows this area is light industrial. And here is the survey of the property. Staff supports the initial zoning. It's in conformance with the future land use map. It's compatible with the surrounding uses. And when you're ready, here is the proposed motion to recommend approval or denial of the voluntary annexation of the initial zoning of M1. And when you're ready for the public hearing, here's the number the public can call in.
All right. As we wait for public comments, comment for or against, does anybody on the commission have any questions for the city staff? All right. Kirby, there's, I don't know if you get anybody on the line who wants to speak for or against.
We have not received any calls in. If we do, we will alert you.
Okay.
And I'm guessing, Gracie, we were not able to get the applicant on the line?
Yes, sir. We do have Ricardo Ramos on the line.
Yes, afternoon, Ricardo Ramos, and I concur with staff recommendation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Gracie.
Do we have anybody else on the line who wishes to speak for or against?
We do not.
All right. If we have nobody else on the line who wishes to speak for or against, what are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve the annexation of the tract Second the motion, Ugalde.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the annexation and the zoning. Is that correct, Johnny?
That is correct.
All right. All those who are not in favor of the recommendation, signify by saying aye. With none heard, motion carries. Thank you. Next item, the public hearing and recommendation of an ordinance of voluntary annexation and initial zoning of R1A on a tract of land totaling 17.57 acres, known as annexation tract 3, Martinez Tract, and it's located north of State Highway 359 and east of Floral Boulevard.
Yes, sir. The applicant is George Martinez. The engineer is Bayway Consulting. And as you mentioned, it's a roughly 18-acre tract of land located north of State Highway 359. Proposed zoning for this is R1A, which is a slightly, it's still a lower density single-family detached residential zone, but a little higher density than our lower single-family zones. Proposed use residential. Here is an aerial view showing it's off 359 on the east side of the city. Here's an aerial view showing the map. I just want to call attention to it. A little wider zoom out, you can see that this is within proximity of the city's landfill, which is that light, which you can see on the aerial, the dirt tracks to the right. Those are actually the landfill. Here's a view of the zoning. It's next to ag and then outside of city limits on the east and north. And then here's the future land use showing this area as commercial and industrial, not as residential, which is what's being asked. And here's the survey. The staff recommendation does not support the initial zoning. We're not against the annexation of this land, but we do not support the initial zoning. We've communicated that with the applicant, and they're discussing that with their client. But because it's located within 1,600 feet of the landfill, we do not feel that that would be a good location for residential. In addition, it's not something that's recommended by the future land use map. And so we don't feel it's compatible with the area. Here's the proposed motion, a motion to recommend approval or denial. And when you're ready, we can open up for public hearing, and we do have the applicant on the phone when you're ready.
All right. I guess let's listen to the applicant first, and then we'll take questions from the commissioners. On the applicant.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Castillo is on the line.
Okay. Hello, my name is Oscar Castillo. Hello, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, and staff. We feel that the R1A is appropriate. You know, on the south you have R1. On the east, even though it's undeveloped, we have residences there, and then on the west we have the agricultural. But right after the agricultural, there's R1, and then the part that is not annexed yet, it also has residences there. I know there's some pockets of industrial, but there's really a lot of residential all around, and even a lot closer from the landfill. So I would like to keep the R1A, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. All right. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, for Mr. Castillo.
Yes.
Mr. Castillo, if you notice, Kirby made a comment as to the distance between the proposed development and the landfill. My question is, will going with a R1A, whoever buys into that development, will they be exposed to some type of contamination from the landfill? Has any study been done as to what would be the impact the area once you do the development. That's one of my questions. I know that this would be actually it's not the project of Platinum, but I think it's a good question to bring it up right now because Kirby brought it up. Now, has any study been done, or are you aware of any study that is in that area that might give you a heads up as to what the community might be exposed once you do development and they're buying into that area?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I couldn't hear all of it. I don't know.
Gracie, can you please restate for him?
Repeat the question. I couldn't hear the whole thing.
Gracie, can you please restate for him?
Yes. Commissioner was referring to if you know of any study and what will be the impact to the surrounding areas?
Not that I know of, Gracie, I don't know that there's I know eventually the landfill is moving, but I don't know if they have done a study on how the surroundings. Unfortunately, no. Not that I know of.
Let me go ahead and clarify that, Mr. Castillo. Can you hear me?
Barely. Could you repeat that?
Yes.
Commissioner, or?
My direct question was, Mr. Castillo, if you are aware, which you're not, of any studies that might reflect any answer as to if the community is going to be exposed by when you do the development, will the community buying into that development be affected by the location of the landfill? And that's one of the questions, because what I can tell from Kirby's comment is that if we go industrial, then not the exposure of the residents will not be as much as if you have 100 houses there. So that being said, if you're not aware of any studies, then shouldn't we have a study, Mr. Chairman, before we do the zoning? I mean, the annexation would be fine. It's just that we might need to bring an industrial zoning with the annexation. And then when they have a study, they can bring it up before us, and then we can decide if it's suitable for us to approve an R1A. That's my comment right there.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go right ahead, John.
Kirby, the 1,600 feet from the site, what's the minimum distance that is there a minimum distance requirement? And go ahead on that first question I have.
There is not a minimum distance requirement, but this is something that has been thought through. That's why the city has designated on the future land use map this area as commercial and industrial, because it doesn't want to see residential there. It doesn't think it would be good. So the city already had that foresight, and that's why it's designated not residential on the future land use map.
And could there be a buffer or something that could be in place to protect the residents, or no?
I think here a buffer is good when you're trying to avoid an audio or a visual impact to a neighborhood. When I think you're talking about smell or possibly something more dangerous, I don't think a barrier is going to help much with that.
Okay.
Erasmo, when I left the city, we had 20 methane gas wells in the landfill, and they're all connected to each other and they have a match. And the reason you have that is because it becomes an explosive danger to the surrounding areas. And as the trash disintegrates, it also creates a liquid that leachates into the creek's surrounding area. And if you remember, when we built that landfill, we had an obligation to shield the property on the Hurd side where they developed that industrial park. I don't believe the same requirement was there because Mr. Hurd didn't have an interest on the west side. And so that tract of land is unprotected. So if you allow the R1A to occur, then at some point in the future, the people who would buy those tracts would then approach the city and have a requirement to the city that they somehow be shielded from all this hills that are there. Those hills are trash.
Yeah.
And they're constantly disintegrating, and they're constantly creating methane gas. As to how the methane gas permeates into the surrounding areas, we don't know, because nobody's ever done a study to do that. So I would have a concern with the zoning as it's being proposed.
Okay. But yeah, you're right, Larry, about the leaching of any decomposition, liquids.
Yeah.
I remember the methane gas issue we did have. There might be more monitoring wells. I don't know now.
Yeah, there's probably more wells now.
Yeah.
That was in 2006.
Yeah, so there might be more wells now. I just don't know. And I wish we would. Do we have anybody on city staff from solid waste, Kirby?
No, we don't.
Because I think there's a lot of questions there that the commission has that we kind of need some answers to. But Larry's correct. When we purchased that piece of property from Hurd, there was some stipulations on there about, possible leaching into soil next door, which was really north on that landfill. But I think from what I'm hearing from all the commission members, they seem to want to have better knowledge of the effects of what would happen, with what's in there. And I guess we need to ask the applicant or Oscar, if I don't know. I mean,
Commissioner, can I just give you a couple options here? Well,
yeah.
Really, they would be options for the applicant. This is not one where you could pause it. It is going to move forward to the city council. You could ask the applicant if they want a positive recommendation from the planning commission, they could bring this back in the annexation cycle, the deadline that is in January for that annexation cycle. But these questions that you're asking now, these are things that the applicant can prepare to answer for city council, so they can maybe address the issues that the planning commission has tonight. But I just wanted to make you aware that this is on a set schedule of noticing that's with the state requirements of annexation. It's not something that can be tabled. It will move forward with. Well,
let me ask you something else. I know that they are actually in R1A zoning. Is the zoning can be changed?
Yes,
right?
yes, of course, the zoning could be changed, yes.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, real quick, I don't see a reason to delay the voluntary annexation, provided that the applicant might agree to bring the annexation on an industrial with an M1 maybe, and that can be changed in the future once he has a study and it shows that the development will be appropriate for the community or whoever the residents are going to live there. But I feel that if we can approve it, going with an M1, which was initially created for that area, I don't see a reason to stop the annexation if the owner decides voluntarily to change it right now to an M1, and then we can probably proceed with the voluntary annexation, or probably the recommendation to be to approve the voluntary annexation in accordance to the current zoning provided by the city of Laredo for that particular area.
All right. Well, I guess what we need to do, I hope he heard all the comments. Maybe he can respond to this. Gracie, is Oscar still on the line?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think we can I just can I talk, Gracie? Gracie, could
Yes, Mr. Castillo. Yes, they can hear you.
What I wanted to say is probably just to, if we could change it to act so it's the same as the tract next to it, to the west. That way, I mean, we really cannot change anything until we explore it, and we go more in depth when we rezone it later on. But we will be agreeable to that, to get the, you know, to get it to agricultural as an initial zoning, and then do our due diligence before we do the rezoning. If that's okay with the commission.
Well, I think right now we need, Kirby, you're gonna have to help us out on this, because I remember that most of the zoning cases going forward are not ag. Okay, now it probably is permissible, but I'm gonna seek your guidance on that.
Yeah, that's going to be the case after this cycle. Starting every cycle after this, by ordinance, the applicants won't be able to ask for ag. And that won't be a permitted zone for annexation. But for this cycle, yes, that's still an option.
Okay. So then right now, the applicant is asking us that.
If I can provide just a little more insight here, what you would be, well, I guess you can provide any recommendation you want, but really it's whether you're positive or negative in support of this. And ultimately, City Council has that discretion to decide whether or not to do with it. But sorry, go
Mr.
ahead.
Sherman, if I may, I would recommend to approve to City Council the voluntary annexation of tract number 3, Martinez Tract, with the initial zoning of AG. That would be my my motion.
All right, well, let me, first of all, before we go forward, this is a public hearing.
Yes, sir.
If there's anybody else on the line who may wish to speak for or against this project, or this annexation.
Sí, Mr. Chairman, habla comisionado Dueñas. Tengo un par de dudas.
Okay.
Tengo una pregunta para el ingeniero Oscar Castillo. Escuché ahí muy someramente que hay ya gente que vive ahí, y hay vecindarios ahí cercanos.
No.
¿Es correcto? ¿Al sur o al norte de este predio?
Se pueden ver residencias, sí, al este y al sur.
Ahí en el mapita yo alcanzo a ver unas casas. Son unas construcciones.
Pero están contadas.
Pero sí hay, ¿no? O estoy viendo mal. Aquí al sur de mi pantalla estoy viendo unos vecindarios pequeños.
Sí, ya hay residencias en este momento, mucho más cerca, sí.
Pues esa es una duda. La segunda duda, o la segunda apreciación es, si nosotros lo dejamos como industrial y se ponen ahí negocios, las personas humanas que van a estar ahí, perdón por lo de personas humanas, trabajando en estos negocios, a ellos no les va a afectar que si vivieran ahí. El tercer punto que yo tengo es, no podemos parar el desarrollo con especulaciones. Para negar algo tenemos que tener, como dijo el comisionado Delgado, debemos de tener las pruebas o los estudios de si está contaminado y qué malestares vamos a ocasionar o qué no vamos a ocasionar. Como dijo Mr. Larry Dovalina también, él nos armó aquí todo un laboratorio de generación de metanol, pero no tenemos nada cierto, ¿no? Entonces yo creo que no debemos de parar el desarrollo de nuestra ciudad con base en especulaciones y a falta de pruebas. También considero que si nosotros aprobáramos este cambio de zona, no nos afecta en nada. La ciudad puede seguir, Kirby puede seguir con sus estudios, y en el momento que vea el riesgo, pues niega los permisos de construcción o los cambia o los dosifica. Yo estoy igual que mi compañero Delgado, y yo creo que ahorita en este momento es más perjudicial negarlo que aprobarlo. No veo por qué no podamos aprobarlo. Estoy a favor de aprobar el cambio de zona por ahorita, para cumplir con el ciclo de que también hablaba Kirby. Gracias, Chairman.
Ok, gracias.
Quería añadir algo a lo que estaba. I would like to add something that to what Commissioner Dueñas was saying. I think there's already a school site on the south that I believe is closer than or at the same distance than what we're trying to annex or what we're annexing. So and it was approved for a school or for 2 school sites. If we go, and I could measure it, but I think it's around like 1,300 feet. Around that. So I don't know if they were asked for some kind of study, and I can definitely ask, but there'll be a little bit of double standard things there, because I mean, obviously the schools are very important, and every single one there. But like I said, just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Okay, Oscar, I think you were willing, I think the commission seems to feel comfortable with an AG. That way that gives you some study time in the future when you change the zoning, that you've crossed all your dots. I mean, you crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, especially with the landfill close by, but at least this way we can go forth. I mean, or we can go forth the way you have it as R1A and see what the commission wants to do with it. I mean, you tell us what you feel, to start it.
I apologize. I couldn't hear.
Gracie, could you please restate? Well, can you hear me, Oscar?
Yes. Sure.
The commissioner was stating that you've got 2 options you can accept. You have more than 2 options, but he's saying, how do you feel about accepting their recommendation of ag and moving forward with that? Or would you like to ask the commission whether or not they will make a motion on the R1A? In other words, you don't want to change it. You want to move forward with the R1A, and you want either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Is that what you prefer?
We're fine with the act, and that way we can explore it a little closer when we go and do the result.
All right, thank you, Oscar. Is there anybody else on the line, Kirby, that would?
No, sir.
With nobody else on the line, we have a motion. I think we have a motion, Commissioner Dominguez.
Yes, I'm going to make a motion to recommend the approval to the City of Council voluntary annexation of Tract 3 Martinez Tract with initial zoning of AG.
All right, we have
That's
a
my
motion.
motion.
Second advice.
Discussion.
Oh,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
We're creating a box here where we're gonna box the city in. The landfill, even if it gets moved, it's gonna be active for the next 20 or 30 years. You have the same situations in different parts of town. You have the Dickinson tract over in Century City. You have the tract of land that was the landfill where Bridge of the Americas was built. We ended up having to mitigate the methane in that area because of how it was developed. You have the other landfill that's on Mines Road off of Fletcher Lane, which has also been unable to develop. And we're boxing in the landfill, and you have this huge landfill that you have almost mountains of trash that have been deposited there for the last 20 or 30 years. And we're boxing in that landfill with residential areas and with future speculation that it's going to be safe for these people. I just don't get it.
Well, actually,
This is Ugalde. Can I ask a question, Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
So the land, they're only going for ag zoning, but once they do that, then what happens after that? Because I'm a little, I'm not sure whether we should give a positive recommendation or a negative, but to Commissioner Duvalina's point, it is very risky. It's a very risky area for us to make a decision on this. So I am conflicted as to what we should do. So,
There's a motion and a second on the floor, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, we do have a motion in a second. I mean,
motion's already on the floor. Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm against the,
Well, wait a minute. Let me see if there's anybody
Okay.
else who has any comments. Does anybody else in the commission have any comments on that particular annexation? Okay, with no other comments from anybody in the commission, we have a motion on the floor. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Can we get a roll call on that, please, Chairman?
Yes, we can do a roll call. You go ahead and start on Joey Thayes.
Against.
You're against the motion.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next one is Raul Ugalde. Raul,
Against.
all right. Then we have, who do we have next? Larry Ovalina.
Against.
All right. Jorge Dominguez.
Favor?
All right. Johnny Narvaez.
For.
Okay. Who am I missing there? Mr. Dueñas.
A favor, Chairman.
All right.
Favor.
Okay. Let's see. Who am I missing here?
Yourself?
You got the hot potato.
Do we have anybody else on there?
No, it's 3-3.
All right. Okay. 3-3. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and vote to
What?
Okay, so the motion fails. So we need another.
This is Diaz. I make a motion to close public hearing, support staff's recommendation, and deny the, well, it's an all or nothing motion, so it's to deny the annexation.
Okay. There's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All right. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 2.
Can you at least state your name with the ayes?
Aye, Narvaez.
Aye, Dominguez.
Okay.
Aye, Dueñas.
Okay. All right, we have 3. Right? Narvaez, Dueñas, and Dominguez. Okay. All right. So we have, so again, a 3-3. I'll go ahead and vote on the motion to deny. That one is denied. Recommendation to the city council will be to deny based on staff recommendation. All right. The next item is public hearing and recommendation of an ordinance of voluntary annexation initial zoning of B1 on a tract of land totaling 17.29 acres, known as annexation tract 5, Cuevas Farm Tract, located south of Mines Road and north of Phelps Road. I'm sorry, you know what? That's not the correct one. I missed one. Just a second. I think the next one that we have here is public hearing and recommendation of volunteer annexation, initial zoning of M1 on a tract of land totaling 2.62 acres, more or less described as leaps and bounds and known as annexation tract 4, the Mario Palos Garza tract. And this is located east of Mines Road, FM 1472 and south of Quinto Valle Drive. All right, Kirby.
The applicant is Mario Garza, the engineer Daniel Gomez, and you already gave us an overview of the property and location. They're proposing M1, which is our light manufacturing district, and the proposed use is industrial. Here's the general area on the northwest side of town, just north of Mines Road. Here is an aerial view showing the proposed property in red. Here is a view of the zoning. It's adjacent to industrial, and it's in you can see the Pinto Valle Industrial Park to the north. Future land use map designates this area as light residential. And here's a survey. This is land that will be annexed and used as public right-of-way, as a road. Staff supports the zoning. It's in conformance with the future land use, and it's compatible with the surrounding uses, and the need for the annexation makes sense so they can have the access they need for the industrial properties. And here's the proposed motion, and when you're ready, number for the public to call in for a public hearing.
I got a question for Kirby before we
Yes, sir.
proceed. The particular roadway that we're looking at right there, is that a private roadway or what?
That,
The one that- for annexation.
Rafa, can you speak to that?
Absolutely. This is a public roadway that is adjacent to some tracks that are being currently developed. And so there's some questions or concerns that came up with the utilities department and needing to bring in this parcel of land into the city for maintenance purposes.
But will it continue to be, I guess, an active roadway?
Yes, sir. It will continue to be an active roadway under the city's maintenance, correct?
So, but let me see if I understand this correctly. The area around this is all annexed already, right?
No, the property to the north is, property to the north is not annexed.
Okay, so the property to the north is not annexed.
Where is north?
Pinto Valle, this is Pinto Valle Industrial Park. And you're telling me that this is not, okay. I'm trying to remember when we made this park.
We made the Pinto Valle annexed when we did the fire training facility, but it was an initial roadway that I want to say is a roadway that's being shown at the top.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where this other roadway ties in.
Yeah, this roadway will service the properties to the south. If you look on this, you're looking at lots 11 through 19 in the Pinto Valle Industrial Park. And to be able to be platted and to be serviced, that needs to be a road that's in the city limits and that needs to be maintained with a certain requirement. And so it has to be brought into the city limits in order to do that.
Okay,
So the road that it joins at the very top of the map, is that an existing road? It looks like there's a road there where you have it in green right there. You missed it again. Go back.
up on,
That green area there, is that a utility easement or is that a roadway?
That's the city limit. The green line is the city limits.
The green line is the city limits.
okay.
It is a road. It's just not a road. Well, part of it is in the city limits and this part is in the county. But it's brought into the city in order to be, as part of the platting process for these properties to the south of the road to be developed into the city limits.
Okay, so a lot of it has to do with right of way, and truthfully, to get utilities in there that are city utilities.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you for that answer. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak in favor or against this particular annexation? Do we have anybody on the line?
No, sir, we don't.
Okay. Does anybody on the commission have any other questions? When no questions heard, what are the wishes of the commission?
Make a motion to approve in accordance to the recommendations of the city staff.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All those who are not in favor of the motion, saying aye. With none heard, the motion carries.
Commissioner Dueñas abstain. Me abstengo de votar.
Okay. There's an abstention by Commissioner Dueñas. All right, motion carries. Next item, public hearing and recommendation of an ordinance of voluntary annexation and initial zoning of B1 on a tract of land totaling 17.29 acres. This is known as annexation tract 5, Islitas Farm Tract, which is located south of the Mines Road and north of Phelps Road. Yes, sir?
The applicant is Las Islitas Farms LLC, the engineer, Sherfy Engineering Company. And you described the property and the location. They are requesting B1 limited district, and the proposed use is residential. The location is just south of Mines Road, between Mines Road and the Rio on the northwest side of the city. Here's a view, an aerial view of the property. Here's a view showing the zoning. You can see the yellow is R1, and to the west of that is B3. The rest of it is property that's not in the city limits. Here's the future land use map showing this area designated as low density residential and medium density residential. And here's a here is the survey of the tract. Staff supports the recommendation, even though the initial zoning of a B1, which is our lightest commercial zone, basically office use, the applicant is intending to do primarily residential, which they're permitted to do in the B1 zone. The commercial zones also allow for you to do residential. So here they haven't gotten extremely descriptive, but they want to do something that would allow them to be a little more creative in their mix of uses, and having a B1 would. We don't feel it's out of place because this B1 would be light commercial. It wouldn't be anything intense commercial that wouldn't mix with the future land use recommendation of this area as residential. So we feel like it fits in and won't be adverse to the surrounding development. Here's the proposed motion, and when you're ready to open the public hearing, here's the number the public can call in.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against. Do we have anybody on the line?
Gracie?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Estrada from Sherfy Engineering is on the line.
All right.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Frank Estrada with Sherfy Engineering. We are in concurrence with staff's recommendation. Don't know if any of the commission has questions that I can assist with.
All right. Anybody on the commission have any questions for the engineer?
Just a real quick one, Mr. Chairman. This is Commissioner Dominguez. Mr. Estrada, B1, is the proposed is like a multi-family, like a complex, a residential complex? Is that what they have in mind?
The initial thought was to be able to allow some sort of unique development in the area. They are in the process of creating a layout. At the end of the day, we may end up having to rezone further down for whatever residential takes place there. But initially, we just the client wanted to have the B1 zoning to be able to create a layout that might be beneficial for the area around the golf course.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Estrada? Okay. Is there anybody else on the line who wishes to speak for or against annexation?
We do not have anyone.
All right. Then what are the wishes of the commission?
I move to close the public hearing and recommend the approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Ugalde.
I'm sorry, who did the second?
Ugalde, second.
Ugalde got the second, all right. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Motion carries. The next item is the review and reconsideration of the San Jose Subdivision Master Plan. The intent is residential. The purpose of this revision is to match revised plat of Santa Cecilia Estate, Santa Fe. All right.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For the overview, the applicant is Seco Holdings LLC. Engineer of record is Durite Engineering. Approximately 53.5 acres southeast of US 59 and south of Casa del Sol. The zoning for this development is R1A and R1MH. The proposed use is residential. The proposed number of lots 457. General location, aerial view, street view, the proposed master plan with Santa Celia Estates, comments from planning and water utilities, Parks and Rec, and the proposed motion.
Let me ask you, Ralph, what is the reconsideration that they're asking for on that master plan?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we recently had the Santa Celia Estates, which had come in over the summer and were trying to request a variance, which was not granted by the Planning Commission. So they did work with the Traffic Department for a revised design. So it did come back to the commission back on October 15th with a revised design, which was approved by the commission. So the engineer wants to just clean it up to make sure that the master plan is matching the approval from the commission. That is all.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I remember
Clean it up.
the traffic situation there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right. What are the wishes of the commissioners? Does anybody in the commission have any other questions? No questions? What are the wishes of the commission?
Motion to approve, Ugalde.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Dominguez.
Dominguez, second. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is consideration and preliminary consideration of the replat of Lot 1A, Block 2, Lago del Mar subdivision unit into Unit 9A into lots 1A through 1AB, Block 2, Lago del Mar subdivision Unit 9A, and granting of a variance to allow for a reduced rear setback from 20 feet to 10 feet. The intent is residential. Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For the record, the applicant is Arms Limited and the owner is Shashi Vaswani, manager. The engineer of record is Sherfy Engineering Company. Approximately 4.4 acres located south of Del Mar Boulevard and west of Country Club Drive. The current zoning is R2. The proposed use is a residential and the proposed number of lots is 28. General location, aerial view, street view, the proposed plat, pardon me, as platted, the proposed plat. And we did want to highlight, make some highlights here. We did coordinate with the engineer after the posting of the packet and review of the request for the variance. And they did provide to us and highlight the tracks that they would be requesting a variance for, which are here in yellow.
So in other words, before the request was a variance on all lots, and we discussed with them, which we wouldn't have supported. We discussed with them that, and they modified their request for a variance just on the lots that you see highlighted in yellow.
Okay.
Where there is some irregularity in the shape of the lots.
Okay. All right.
And so it's important to note then that our recommendation is changing from what you saw previously because of an update from the applicant. And so we're no longer recommending denial on the variance. We are recommending approval, but do know that it requires a 2/3 vote.
All right.
Which would be out of the 7 that are here, it would require 5.
Okay.
Is that right? No, 6. It would require 6.
6. So in our staff comments, we did update that and we did include, or we did list, as you can see on your screen, the actual lots for the record. So these are the comments from planning, engineering, water utilities and traffic safety, Parks and Rec, utility coordination, and the proposed motion.
Can you go back to the planning item, please? The comments from planning. There is a retention pond in close proximity to the area. Is this in a floodplain?
There is a slight portion of the property that is in the floodplain. So the engineer would have to provide the base flood elevations and also make notes that the residents must be elevated 18 inches above the base flood elevation.
So does a retention pond to the south of it need to be upgraded as part of this process? Or is it adequate with the size that it is now?
That would be something that would be evaluated at the one-stop shop process once that environmental engineering takes a closer look at it.
We hope.
Yes, sir.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions? No other questions, and what are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary consideration of the plat 1A, Block 2, subdivision in accordance to staff recommendations.
All right.
Second the motion, Ugalde.
Ugalde seconds the motion. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Unheard, motion carries. The next item that we have is the final consideration of Los Presidentes right-of-way, dedicated plat to intended city right-of-way.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is JMLG Holdings. The engineer of record is Howell Engineering and Surveying. Approximately 5 acres located east of Cuatro Vientos and south of State Highway 59. The zoning is AG, B4, and R1A, and the proposed use of city right-of-way is 1 lot. General location, aerial view, street view, and the proposed plat, and the proposed motion.
All right. Anybody have any questions? No questions heard. What are the wishes of the commission?
To approve the final consideration of the Los Presidentes right away, not advice.
Okay. Advice has a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion, Dominguez.
Second, all those who are not in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Thank you. And that concludes our meeting. Herbie, you're muted.
Kirby, you're muted.
You're muted, Herbie. Unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry about that.
All
Just
right.
wanted to say there was an item we missed, is director's comments, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead. I'm wondering why
Thank
you
you.
didn't put it in.
Thank you. Just an oversight there. But just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for your service. And we have one more planning commission meeting. That's in the middle of December. What's the date on that, Rafa?
The date on that meeting is December the 17th.
December 17th. So two weeks from today. And after that, we won't have one for a month because we're missing the first one in January, as you voted on. But we've been talking with engineers, making sure we're facilitating everything we can to make sure we don't slow anything down. So just wanted to update you on that. And again, thank you for your service very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Kirby. And I want to wish all the commission members a happy holiday. You all stay safe. And
I'd like to wish everybody happy holidays. And if this is my last meeting, it's been a fun 5 years. So you guys have happy holidays. And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn maybe for the last time.
Second
The motion.
all right. And all those who are obviously not in favor of the motion signify by saying to continue the meeting. Not heard, motion carries.